This is Interactive Learning Video Assignment 2, and it is number 16 from the homework 03. Now, what it gives us is the limit as x approaches root 3, the function 1 over x squared is equal to 1/3, and it wants us to prove it. So first, we're going to take all the multitudes of information it gave us and assign them to values we already know. So the function is obviously 1 over x squared. The limit, or big L, is 1/3. The c that x approaches is root 3rd. And we also have our functions that we know exist, or our inequalities, excuse me. That 0 is less than the absolute value of x minus the c, which is less than delta, and absolute value of f of x minus L is less than epsilon. So the first thing we're going to do is okay, so we're going to get the absolute value off the f of x minus L function. But we can already go ahead and plug in all of our numbers. For the f of x minus L, absolute value is less than epsilon. And then once we do that, we can put on the other side a negative epsilon to be less than both things. And then we move on down. And from there we're going to simplify. So right here we add 1/3 to each side. Moving on, we simplify that. We can go ahead and add the epsilon and negative epsilon to the 1/3 by getting common denominators. So we get 1 minus 3 epsilon over 3 is less than 1 over x squared is less than 3 epsilon plus 1 over 3. And then we're going to get the reciprocal of each side. But since we get the reciprocal, we have to flip the inequality signs to face the other way. So now we have 3 over 1 minus 3 epsilon is greater than x squared, which is greater than 3 over 3 epsilon plus 1. Move on down here, and all we have left to do is take the root of each side. Now, we know that for all x cannot equal root 3, that this function is true. We have to move on and make sure the delta values correspond. So, now that we have our interval, we are going to get the distance from C to each side of the interval, which would have to do with the delta part. So we're going to do the absolute value of x minus c is less than delta, but for now we just need the absolute value side. So we plug in our values, and for the first part, which would be root 3 minus root 3 over 3 epsilon plus 1, we can factor out the root 3. And then we can do the same for the second part, factor out the root 3. So we finish and we determine that given the values that root 3 absolute value 1 minus 1 over root 3 epsilon plus 1 would end up being less than the other. So we use the one that's less than because we want the shorter distance from C. So the distance to the left is less than the distance to the right. So the distance to the left would be equal to our delta. So in the end, 0 is less than absolute value of x minus root 3, which is less than root 3, absolute value of 1 minus 1 over root 3 epsilon plus 1. So we know that our function checks out, and that 1 over x squared minus 1/3 is less than epsilon equals true.